What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. So today is indeed Wednesday, which means the new summit is now live here in Motorfest. We also have the This Versus That, which is going to be Volume 3. I would say the rewards for this one are honestly fairly decent. We do have the Nissan GTR there in gold, and we also have the Sparrow Competition Underglow. Might actually look kind of cool on some of these Sparrow Competition Alpha GP vehicles. I did find it kind of funny because the next summit is going to be the Pit Stop Pressure. This is actually going to be a full summit based on the Alpha GP vehicles, so having like the main Sparrow competition there as like an actual underglow honestly makes a lot of sense for this summit here. But nonetheless though, jumping into the summit for this week, it is going to be mainly on the racing category again, and it is of course going to be the This Versus That, but with that we're also going to have the Bullseye, a Speed Trap, and a Slalom down here. I would say the skills for this week are honestly going to be fairly easy. And then for the main events in the summit, you are pretty much going to pick from a few different vehicles on some of them. And then you can also run like the exact same car like the Volkswagen R, like the main Hunatron, which I would say the Hunatron is probably going to be incredibly good. On top of that, you're most likely going to see the Carrera SS as well. And running this in first person mode, I will go over more of that stuff here in a second. Before the skills this week though, I will also leave a tag on the screen for the Bullseye if you're interested in them. Funnily enough, in that video, I also did end up going over this exact same one. Before this one, though, you are going to have to use a plane and a ground vehicle for it. You pretty much do not have a choice. Unless you somehow jump into this with, like, the lovely Deluxo from GTA, then if you actually have a score breaker on that, you might actually have a chance. But the big thing here, guys, I would definitely recommend trying out these slick aircraft. I absolutely love this plane, plus you also don't have to mess with it, and it's going to be fairly stable pretty much compared to the other ones. When it comes to the ground vehicle though, all you need is a score breaker set, and you're pretty much good to go. And then moving over to the next skill is going to be another speed trap. So for this one, guys, you guessed that you're going to have to use a dragster. Shocking at this point, I would probably say, well, maybe. But for this, though, I would recommend trying out pretty much any drag car that you most likely see on the leaderboard, which at this point, I would probably say everybody has an idea of what to use. For me, though, I'm going to be the oddball running something like the Dodge Viper. Is it going to be the fastest car out there, like the best accelerating one? I would probably say no, but my goodness, it really is going to be pretty dang decent. Having a regular like Nitro Chemist, guys, with pure and frenetic, it's a monster. You're probably not going to be breaking any records with this vehicle, but at least you can score pretty dang high compared to something like the Burning Wheels Edition. And then moving over to the final skill though is going to be a slalom. So for this, all you will have to do is use a fast ground vehicle with having a score breaker set active. For that, guys, I would recommend using like a tier 1, a tier 2, a hypercar, even something like a racing, and then of course the Alpha GP. Those are probably going to be the fastest options. I did want to try out a tier 1 though to see what it can do. I got 154,000 points, which honestly is pretty dang good. So you could easily run one of the lower classes if you only have a score breaker for them. You don't actually have to use a hypercar to get a high score on these. And now moving over to the first event here is going to be with a car based in Germany. So for me, I did end up picking the Volkswagen Electric R. Don't get me wrong, guys, the Hunatron is honestly going to be incredible. For some odd reason though, I do like the way the Electric R does feel with like braking and also the way it corners. I would say it is probably going to be a preference thing there, but I would definitely recommend trying out the Electric R because it is incredible. I also did end up deciding to run that car in the bottom one over here, which you can't see you have to use a car, shocking. But I also did end up using the Electric R once again, which for this you are again going to see the Hunatron, but if you guys are looking for like a different vehicle, the Electric R is amazing. And I would say like electric wise, which you know is in the name of it, this thing really is going to have insane acceleration, plus I don't know what it is, but my goodness, the way this car does corner is going to be some of the best in the game. And on top of that, the Electric R has some incredible brakes to back up everything else. And now moving over to the next event though, we are now going to have to focus. Man, I really need to stop with this. Before this event though, you are going to have to use the Ford Focus RS. Funnily enough, when looking at this vehicle in the racing category, your first thought probably is, well, this car is probably not going to be good, it's probably awful. I would say though guys, guess again because it's honestly really good. Not only does it handle well, but it does have great acceleration. A few tips I can give for this event though, and I guess this could go for the other ones, with the vehicle that you're actually running manual with, so obviously something like the electric R doesn't count here. Before the event with the Ford Focus though, now I would actually say you could do this with the C3 and the other two races as well, because I did notice guys running manual and keeping that car in one extra gear around those corners. For example, let's say you are running one of these events like the racing one here with the lovely Corvette CAR and you did notice, well, yeah, I can get around that corner in fourth gear. I would actually recommend putting that car in a fifth gear, that way you are a bit quicker. Not only that though, it's going to give you a big rocket out of that corner, especially using nitrous. And then moving over to the next event though, you are going to have to use the Corvette C3, which I would actually say is going to be fairly decent. Is it going to be the best racing vehicle? Huh, no. But it is going to be fairly good enough to where you can get a good score with it. A lot of players are most likely going to be running the Fire ED, but knowing me guys, I did indeed jump into the regular C3 and I have to admit, it is not going to be a bad vehicle in any way whatsoever. It's also going to be a 4-speed, which you would think is terrible. Surprisingly though, you can keep this thing going and I guess revving a bit easier with 4 gears. That way you can actually get around the corners a bit quicker. And then moving over to the final event here is going to be with the 911 Carrera RSR Turbo. I'm not going to lie here, guys. This car is probably going to shock a lot of players because it actually handles really well. I might even end up trying out this car in future summits because, like, it is actually that good. Not only does it handle really well, but it does accelerate nicely. And you can pretty much tell the car is going to be fairly decent. I wouldn't say it's going to be, like, the best racing car because there's other obvious ones like the Hunatron, even like the electric R that would most likely eat it for a Sunday breakfast at IHOP, but I still would recommend trying this car out though because it does actually stick to the ground way better than you would think. And I even went around some corners going, wait a minute, I can go around that corner in third gear instead of second, and that thing would actually grip a bit. Now sometimes it would like slide, but even then though, it's still going to be very manageable, and even in some ways I would actually say it might end up helping it. But overall though guys, I would say the lovely This First That Volume 3 is going to be a pretty fun summit, pretty much primarily based around racing vehicles, which isn't shocking. And then we also have the regular summit next week, which is going to be fully Alpha GP. But if you have any questions at all, let me know in the comments below. Let's jump right into this.